Rich Habits Formula: Adopt the Daily Patterns of a High Net Worth Individual. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. Wealth does not arrive with fanfare. It builds quietly, brick by brick, through choices so small they rarely feel significant in the moment. Yet over time, these choices separate those who merely dream from those who live in the realities others only imagine. The secret isn't found in windfalls, luck, or even extraordinary talent. It's rooted in daily patterns so consistent they become nearly invisible, forming a blueprint that anyone willing to follow can replicate. High net worth individuals are not operating on a different playing field. They are playing by a different set of rules. Their lives are structured around habits that compound relentlessly, each one nudging them forward until the gap between where they started and where they stand becomes unrecognizable. These are not mythical secrets reserved for the few. They are deliberate actions hiding in plain sight. The challenge is not complexity, it is commitment. As Warren Buffett once said, "The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken." This truth cuts both ways. The habits you follow either weigh you down or lift you higher, and the wealthiest among us understand this distinction with unwavering clarity. This book is about those habits. The daily rituals, decision filters, mindset shifts, and structured systems that form what can be called the Rich Habits Formula. It is not about chasing quick wins or gambling on chance, but about learning to think and act with the precision that transforms potential into inevitability. By the final page, you will not just see how wealth is built, you will know how to begin building it yourself, one intentional habit at a time. Chapter 1: The Wealth Blueprint: Why Habits Outperform Luck. Wealth is often mistaken for a stroke of luck, a winning lottery ticket, a sudden inheritance, or being born into the right family. Yet the evidence tells another story entirely. Studies reveal that 88% of millionaires are self-made, their fortunes built not by chance but by deliberate, repeated actions. Wealth is not lightning in a bottle. It's the result of small, consistent behaviors compounding quietly over time until they produce extraordinary results. Imagine two people standing at the base of a mountain. One waits for a helicopter ride that may never come. The other begins climbing, one steady step at a time. Habits are those steps. Each small decision, from how you spend your first hour in the morning to how you invest the spare $50 in your account, either moves you upward or keeps you grounded. This is the true wealth blueprint, not windfalls, but compounding, behavior layered upon behavior until results become undeniable. This concept, known as behavioral compounding, mirrors how money itself grows. Just as compound interest multiplies wealth silently in the background, repeated habits stack unseen, gradually reshaping identity and outcomes. At first, the progress feels invisible, even frustrating. But just as a single drop of water can eventually carve stone, habits erode the gap between where you are and where you aspire to be. Those at the top understand this principle intuitively. They know that success is less about intensity and more about consistency. They don't sprint for weeks and collapse. They pace themselves, building systems that run regardless of mood or motivation. Research from Duke University shows that up to 45% of daily actions are habitual. That means nearly half of what determines your future operates on autopilot. Wealthy individuals engineer this autopilot carefully. They design routines that minimize decision fatigue and align every repeated behavior with their desired outcome. Over time, this creates an invisible conveyor belt carrying them toward financial freedom, while others remain stuck in place, wrestling with impulsive, unstructured choices. Consider the lives of high net worth individuals. Their days are not marked by chaos but by rhythm. Their calendars reflect priorities, not emergencies. Their mornings are intentional, their time guarded, their learning constant, and their finances automated. Each of these patterns is a brick in the structure of wealth, laid patiently and precisely. None of these bricks alone makes someone rich. Together, over the years, they form the foundation of a transformed identity, one where abundance becomes the natural byproduct of disciplined living. The challenge is that society glorifies sudden success. Viral headlines highlight the tech founder who sells overnight or the celebrity who skyrockets to fame. Yet those are outliers. For every story of instant fortune, there are thousands built in silence, through daily practices so unglamorous they rarely make headlines. True wealth building is slow architecture, not fireworks. It's not sexy to say someone rose early, read voraciously, invested diligently, and repeated this cycle for decades, but that's how it happens. The good news is that this blueprint is not exclusive. It is learnable, repeatable, and accessible to anyone willing to commit. The only prerequisite is a shift in perspective. Stop waiting for the helicopter. Begin climbing. Wealth is built brick by brick, habit by habit, until what once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. Wealth is habit-driven, not luck-dependent. Behavioral compounding is the foundation of sustainable success. Daily routines silently shape financial outcomes. Which of your current habits build your financial future, and which silently erode it? Choose one small, repeatable habit that aligns with wealth. Track it daily for the next week. Chapter 2: Morning Rituals: Priming the Mind for Opportunity. The world's wealthiest individuals treat mornings as sacred ground. They understand that how the first hour of the day unfolds often dictates the trajectory of the next 23. Their mornings are not rushed reactions to alarms and emails. They are carefully structured rituals designed to prime the mind for clarity, focus, and opportunity. This deliberate start is not a luxury reserved for those who have already succeeded. It is one of the reasons they succeed in the first place. Imagine two contrasting mornings. One begins with the sharp blare of an alarm, followed by a frantic scroll through notifications, rushed coffee, and a scramble to meet the day's demands. The other begins quietly, with intention, a few minutes of meditation to center the mind, reading to feed it, and journaling to sharpen focus. The first morning feels like being pulled downstream by a fast current. The second places you firmly at the helm of your own ship. Wealthy individuals choose the latter, because they know that control over the morning cascades into control over the day, and control over the day compounds into control over life. Neuroscience supports this approach. Early hours present a unique neurological window. Cortisol levels peak, heightening alertness, while the brain remains free of the clutter accumulated later in the day. This is the prime time to program the mind toward goals and opportunities. Research on implementation intentions shows that individuals who visualize their objectives and rehearse their desired actions in the morning significantly outperform those who do not. By using this window for focus rather than distraction, high-net-worth individuals condition their minds to recognize and seize opportunity. A common misconception is that these rituals require hours. In reality, even 10 intentional minutes can shift the brain into a wealth-building state. A simple sequence might begin with 2 minutes of mindful breathing to quiet mental noise, followed by 5 minutes of reading or listening to material that aligns with long-term goals, and 3 minutes of journaling on the single highest impact task for the day. This practice is not about adding complexity, but about anchoring clarity before the world intrudes. Over time, this becomes a cognitive edge. A prepared mind sees what an unprepared one misses. Consider the metaphor of a lens. A morning ritual polishes that lens so the day's opportunities come into focus. Without it, the lens remains clouded by stress and reactivity, and even obvious chances go unnoticed. Wealthy individuals protect their mornings fiercely because they know this lens is the difference between drifting and deliberate advancement. They build an environment to support this. No late-night scrolling, no cluttered bedrooms, alarms placed across the room to ensure rising on time. They treat the morning as a platform for performance rather than an afterthought. This discipline creates a mental shift from scarcity to abundance. A mind trained daily to focus on growth becomes more adept at spotting patterns, solving problems, and recognizing value others overlook. Over weeks, the effect compounds, much like financial investments do. Each intentional morning strengthens the neural pathways associated with decision-making and self-control, both essential traits of wealth-building behavior. When mornings are designed with purpose, the day stops feeling like a reaction and starts feeling like a plan unfolding. Those who command the first hour often command the rest. This is why, for the world's wealthiest, mornings are non-negotiable. They know that success is not stumbled upon in chaos but prepared for in silence. Mornings are a neurological and psychological reset point that determine focus for the day. Intentional rituals compound clarity, discipline, and opportunity recognition. Even brief, structured practices create a lasting edge in decision-making and productivity. How does your current morning routine shape the mindset you bring into the day? Tomorrow morning, dedicate 10 uninterrupted minutes to meditation, focused reading, and writing down one high-impact goal. Repeat daily for 1 week. Chapter 3: Mastering Time. Prioritize what truly pays off. Wealthy individuals understand that time is the only resource that cannot be replenished. Unlike money, it cannot be earned back once spent. This is why they guard it with a discipline that often appears extreme to those who undervalue it. They recognize that the difference between those who merely stay busy and those who build empires is not effort, but focus. Busyness is a trap. Productivity is a weapon. The wealthy build their days around high-value tasks, the few actions that create disproportionate returns, while systematically eliminating distractions and low-value work that drains without building. Consider Warren Buffett's 20-slot rule, a principle he's shared repeatedly. Imagine you have a card with only 20 slots representing the most important things you can accomplish in your lifetime. Each decision to fill a slot forces brutal prioritization. For Buffett, success hinges not on doing more but on obsessively focusing on the few things that matter most. This mindset reframes time. It is no longer a calendar to be filled but a finite set of chances to be allocated wisely. Wealthy individuals apply this filter daily, ensuring that their time is spent compounding value rather than simply passing. The problem is that most people confuse movement with progress. Days packed with meetings, emails, and tasks create the illusion of productivity while yielding little meaningful advancement. Studies on workplace efficiency reveal that a majority of daily activity is reactive rather than strategic, spent responding rather than creating. High net worth individuals flip this equation. They start each day by identifying the single highest impact action that will push their goals forward and prioritize it relentlessly. This one thing approach, popularized by research-backed productivity models, aligns perfectly with how the wealthy operate: focus first, filter later, delegate always. A practical tool they employ is time blocking. This involves carving out uninterrupted segments of the day devoted exclusively to deep, focused work on high-leverage tasks. These blocks are treated as immovable appointments, defended against interruptions and trivial demands. By front-loading these sessions in the morning, when mental energy peaks, they ensure their best hours are invested in activities with lasting payoff rather than drained by minor obligations. This discipline compounds over time. A single hour spent daily on focused, high-return work adds up to over 250 hours annually, nearly the equivalent of 6 workweeks dedicated entirely to wealth building. Another distinction lies in their handling of distractions. Wealthy individuals view their attention as an asset, not a commodity to be scattered freely. They minimize digital interruptions, set clear boundaries for communication, and delegate aggressively. For tasks that do not directly compound their wealth or growth, they ask, "Can this be automated, outsourced, or eliminated?" This ruthless pruning frees bandwidth for strategic thinking and opportunity recognition, the activities that truly separate high performers from the rest. Ultimately, this approach to time reframes each day as an investment portfolio. Every hour is a choice: allocate it to something that grows or waste it on something that vanishes. Over years, these choices create an unbridgeable gap between those who drift reactively and those who advance deliberately. Wealthy individuals are not busier than anyone else. They are simply more selective about what earns a place on their schedule. When you adopt this lens, time stops feeling like something slipping through your fingers and starts feeling like capital deployed for a return. Every decision becomes intentional, every block of focus a deposit into the future. This is how the wealthy transform time from an enemy into an ally, using it not just to manage their lives but to multiply them. Time is a finite, non-renewable asset that must be invested, not spent. High net worth individuals prioritize high-leverage tasks and eliminate low-value distractions. Time blocking and focused attention compound results far more effectively than scattered effort. Which low-value activities consume hours of your day that could be redirected toward high-impact work? Tomorrow, Block one uninterrupted hour for a single high-value task and protect it fiercely from distractions. Chapter 4: Relentless Learning, Knowledge as Capital. High-net-worth individuals view knowledge the same way they view money, as an asset that compounds. Every book read, every course completed, every conversation with a mentor adds a layer of intellectual capital that can be leveraged for greater results. This mindset separates them from those who stagnate. While most stop learning once formal education ends, the wealthy treat learning as a lifelong investment, one that pays dividends in insight, innovation, and adaptability. Their wealth is not merely a reflection of their bank accounts but of the ideas, frameworks, and skills they have accumulated over time. Consider Elon Musk, who famously read 2 books per day as he taught himself disciplines ranging from physics to rocket engineering. His approach embodies a principle that research consistently supports. Those who continually acquire knowledge expand their problem-solving ability and opportunity recognition exponentially. Studies from the National Bureau of Economic Research highlight that individuals who invest in learning see significantly higher lifetime earnings, not just from skill acquisition but from improved decision-making. Knowledge functions as leverage, amplifying the impact of every other habit in the wealth-building process. The wealthy are intentional about what they consume. They curate their inputs the way others curate their diets. Instead of passively absorbing random information, they focus on high-quality material aligned with their goals: biographies of successful individuals, industry journals, specialized courses, and thought leaders who challenge their perspectives. They understand that the brain, like the body, is shaped by what it consumes. By feeding it strategically, they create a mental environment primed for insight and innovation. Over time, this curated input shifts their worldview from reactive to proactive, positioning them to anticipate trends rather than merely follow them. Their learning is also active rather than passive. They apply the teach back method, summarizing concepts in their own words or sharing them with peers, which research shows strengthens retention and deepens comprehension. They don't merely read, they annotate, question, and connect ideas to current challenges. This approach transforms learning from an abstract exercise into a tool for immediate problem-solving and growth. It is not about consuming information endlessly but about using it as raw material to build actionable strategies and solutions. Another hallmark of their learning habit is consistency. Just as compounding wealth depends on steady contributions, compounding knowledge depends on daily input. Many allocate a non-negotiable 30 minutes each day to focus study, understanding that small, repeated doses accumulate into vast reservoirs of expertise. Over a decade, this adds up to thousands of hours devoted to mastery. This is why they seem to effortlessly connect dots others miss. Their mental library is extensive and organized, allowing them to draw from diverse fields to generate novel insights. The link between relentless learning and wealth is not simply academic. In volatile markets and evolving industries, adaptability becomes a survival skill. Those who stop learning cling to outdated methods, while those who continue to grow pivot seamlessly into new opportunities. The wealthy thrive in change because they are prepared for it. Their constant learning builds a kind of mental liquidity, an ability to deploy fresh ideas and strategies where others see only uncertainty. Ultimately, relentless learning is less about acquiring information and more about shaping identity. It transforms a person into someone who seeks, questions, and adapts continuously. This identity shift aligns perfectly with the mindset of high-net-worth individuals. Wealth is dynamic, and those who pursue it must be equally dynamic. When knowledge is treated as capital, it compounds silently in the background, eventually manifesting as tangible wealth, strategic insight, and resilience in the face of complexity. Knowledge, like money, compounds over time and serves as leverage. Wealthy individuals curate their learning intentionally and apply it actively. Consistent, focused learning builds adaptability and long-term strategic advantage. What daily learning habit could you commit to that would steadily expand your intellectual capital? Schedule 30 minutes tomorrow to read or study material that directly aligns with your wealth-building goals. Chapter 5: Networking like the Elite, Building a Circle of Leverage. Wealthy individuals understand that relationships are not incidental to success, they are central to it. The phrase "your net worth is your network" is more than a cliché, it reflects a measurable truth. High net worth individuals intentionally cultivate circles of influence filled with people who challenge their thinking, open doors, and elevate their standards. They recognize that proximity to ambition reshapes what feels possible. Being surrounded by those who operate at higher levels shifts benchmarks and accelerates progress far faster than isolated effort ever could. The most successful approach networking not as casual socializing but as deliberate relationship building. They treat connections as strategic investments, recognizing that opportunities often flow through trust and reputation long before they appear in public view. Studies on social capital reveal that individuals embedded in high-quality networks experience faster career advancement, greater access to resources, and more exposure to critical information. For the wealthy, networking is not a random activity but an intentional, structured habit designed to create leverage. This begins with selectivity. Rather than scattering attention across countless superficial acquaintances, they focus on depth over breadth. They target relationships with individuals whose values, vision, or expertise align with their own aspirations. The wealthy approach networking like gardeners, cultivating a few high-quality relationships with patience and care rather than attempting to plant seeds everywhere indiscriminately. They are not transactional in their approach. Instead, they prioritize genuine value exchange, knowing that trust cannot be manufactured overnight. Their methods are deceptively simple but profoundly effective. They schedule regular one-on-one conversations with mentors, peers, and collaborators. They attend curated events and industry gatherings not merely to be seen, but to engage meaningfully. They follow up consistently, understanding that relationships fade without nurturing. A simple handwritten note of appreciation, a relevant article sent to a contact, or a quick check-in message demonstrates attentiveness that many neglect. Over time, these small acts of intentionality compound into bonds of credibility and mutual support. High net worth individuals also embrace the principle of connecting others. By becoming a bridge between people who could benefit from knowing each other, they position themselves as hubs within their networks. This act of generosity strengthens their reputation as valuable connectors and often results in reciprocity, as those they help naturally look for ways to return the favor. In this way, their influence grows not because they seek favors aggressively, but because they continually create value for others. Another defining characteristic is their willingness to invest in access. They attend high-caliber seminars, join exclusive mastermind groups, and participate in professional associations where influential players gather. These environments place them in rooms where conversations spark opportunities unavailable to the general public. This is not elitism but pragmatism. They understand that ideas and opportunities circulate differently in such circles and position themselves accordingly. Crucially, networking for the wealthy is not opportunistic. They approach relationships with a long-term mindset, knowing that trust and rapport built over years often lead to transformative opportunities later. They do not wait until they need something to connect. They engage continually, building reservoirs of goodwill long before they ever require a withdrawal. This patient approach reflects an understanding that relationships compound just like habits and investments. Ultimately, networking at this level is less about collecting business cards and more about aligning with a community of upward momentum. It places individuals in an ecosystem where ambition is normalized, where collaboration breeds innovation, and where access to knowledge and opportunity is accelerated. In such environments, rising becomes almost inevitable, as the tide of collective progress lifts everyone within it. High-quality networks accelerate wealth building through shared knowledge, access, and credibility. Elite networking focuses on depth, intentionality, and long-term trust rather than transactional exchanges. Being in proximity to ambitious, like-minded individuals elevates standards and reveals hidden opportunities. Who in your life challenges you to think bigger, and how often are you intentionally engaging with them? This week, reach out to one person who inspires you, schedule a conversation, and offer them value before asking for anything in return. Chapter 6: Financial Automation. Structure that builds wealth. Wealthy individuals understand that money follows structure. They do not leave their finances to impulse or mood because they know human behavior is inconsistent. Instead, they create automated systems that remove decision-making friction and ensure that wealth building happens consistently, regardless of how busy or distracted life becomes. This principle is rooted in behavioral finance. By taking willpower out of the equation, automation transforms good intentions into reliable outcomes. Consider how automated investing works. By setting recurring contributions into retirement accounts, index funds, or other vehicles, wealthy individuals harness the power of dollar-cost averaging, purchasing assets steadily regardless of market fluctuations. This eliminates the emotional pitfalls of trying to time the market and ensures they are always building for the future. Over years, this habit compounds quietly. A fixed monthly investment grows not just from contributions but from the exponential effect of reinvested returns, a force Albert Einstein famously referred to as the eighth wonder of the world. Automation also applies to savings. Rather than manually transferring leftover funds at the end of the month, when it is tempting to spend what remains, high net worth individuals set automatic transfers that occur the moment income hits their accounts. This creates a pay-yourself-first framework, treating wealth accumulation as a non-negotiable obligation rather than an afterthought. Psychologists call this a pre-commitment strategy, a method proven to increase adherence to long-term goals by removing the need for repeated choices. Once systems are in place, the path of least resistance becomes the path to growth. Expense management follows the same principle. The wealthy often use budgeting tools that categorize and track spending automatically, flagging anomalies without requiring daily oversight. They establish clear rules: a fixed percentage for living expenses, another for investments, another for discretionary use. This reduces financial decision fatigue and enforces discipline without constant vigilance. Their spending reflects deliberate allocation rather than reactive consumption, creating stability that reinforces their broader wealth-building habits. Debt, too, is managed systematically. Automated payments prevent late fees and protect credit scores, while surplus funds are directed strategically toward high-interest balances first. By structuring debt elimination as an automatic process, wealthy individuals remove the stress of juggling bills and free their mental energy for pursuits that create income rather than merely service it. They understand that attention is a finite resource better spent on wealth-building opportunities than on recurring financial tasks that can be delegated to technology. This structured approach also has a psychological payoff. Automated systems reduce anxiety by creating predictability. Instead of constantly wondering whether enough is being saved or invested, individuals operating under these systems know progress is happening in the background. This sense of control strengthens confidence and decreases the likelihood of impulsive financial behavior. With the foundation secured, they can focus on higher-order decisions such as evaluating new ventures, pursuing strategic investments, or building businesses. Automation does not replace vigilance entirely. Wealthy individuals still review their systems regularly to optimize them. They conduct quarterly audits to adjust contribution rates, rebalance portfolios, and refine expense allocations. However, these reviews are strategic rather than reactive, aligning with their long-term vision rather than emotional responses to short-term fluctuations. This balance of automation and oversight creates a financial engine that runs smoothly without constant hands-on effort. Ultimately, automation embodies the principle of working smarter rather than harder. It channels consistent action into avenues that predictably generate results, transforming financial growth into a default outcome rather than an uncertain aspiration. Wealth then becomes less about heroic bursts of discipline and more about the quiet reliability of well-designed systems executing daily in the background. For those who adopt this mindset, financial stability ceases to be a struggle and instead becomes a platform from which greater ambitions can be pursued. Automated systems remove reliance on willpower and ensure consistent wealth building. Savings, investing, and debt elimination thrive under structured, rule-based automation. Predictability reduces stress and frees mental bandwidth for higher-level financial decisions. What financial process in your life could be automated today to remove friction and ensure progress? Set up an automatic transfer that moves a fixed percentage of your income into a savings or investment account each month. Chapter 7: Decision Filters: Thinking Like a Millionaire. Wealthy individuals make decisions differently from the majority because they use structured filters to guide their thinking. These filters act as mental frameworks, helping them evaluate opportunities, risks, and trade-offs with clarity rather than emotion. While most people make choices reactively, driven by immediate feelings or social pressure, the wealthy apply deliberate criteria that prioritize long-term gains over short-term satisfaction. This ability to filter decisions is one of the most powerful yet overlooked drivers of their success. One such framework is the principle of opportunity cost. High net worth individuals constantly ask, "If I choose this, what am I giving up?" This question forces every decision to be weighed not only by its potential upside but by the alternative paths it closes off. Research in behavioral economics shows that those who consistently factor opportunity cost into their choices allocate resources more efficiently and avoid impulsive detours. They recognize that time, energy, and capital are finite, and therefore deploy them with surgical precision toward high-impact outcomes. Another widely used filter is the long-term ROI lens. Before committing, they ask, "Will this matter in 5 years?" This perspective strips away the noise of trivial decisions and places focus on actions that compound meaningfully over time. For example, investing in a new skill or building a strategic relationship might not yield immediate results, but it positions them for exponential returns later. This patient lens contrasts sharply with the instant gratification mindset that dominates the average decision-making process, where comfort today often outweighs prosperity tomorrow. Risk evaluation is another critical element. Wealthy individuals are not reckless, they are calculated. They apply asymmetric risk analysis, seeking choices where the upside significantly outweighs the downside. This approach echoes Jeff Bezos's regret minimization framework, in which he evaluates decisions based on whether he would regret not pursuing them decades later. This filter encourages boldness where the downside is limited but the potential upside is transformative. Over time, stacking such asymmetric bets compounds opportunities that dramatically accelerate wealth building. Importantly, they also use filters to limit decisions altogether. The cognitive load of constant choice is a hidden drain on willpower and focus. By predeciding certain aspects of life, automating finances, creating fixed routines, standardizing meals or wardrobes, they conserve mental energy for higher-order thinking. This practice, supported by research on decision fatigue, explains why many high performers keep their daily lives remarkably simple. They reserve their cognitive bandwidth for choices that truly move the needle. Emotional detachment plays a pivotal role in these decision frameworks. Where fear or excitement can derail rational judgment, filters serve as stabilizers. They transform choices into structured evaluations, reducing the influence of temporary feelings. For example, before making a significant purchase or investment, wealthy individuals might require a mandatory waiting period, forcing themselves to revisit the decision with a cooler head. This deliberate pause prevents reactive errors and reinforces discipline. Collectively, these filters create a decision-making ecosystem designed for compounding results. Each choice builds upon the last, not in isolation but as part of a cohesive trajectory. By contrast, those without such frameworks often lurch between inconsistent priorities, dissipating focus and eroding progress. The wealthy do not possess more hours in the day or inherently superior intelligence. They simply channel their time, resources, and mental energy through structured filters that keep them aligned with their highest goals. Adopting this mindset shifts how every opportunity is viewed. Each decision becomes an investment evaluated through clear criteria rather than a guess colored by fleeting circumstances. Over time, the cumulative effect of thousands of filtered choices transforms not just financial outcomes, but the very way a person engages with the world. Thinking like a millionaire is not about a single breakthrough decision, but about consistently applying frameworks that turn uncertainty into calculated action. Wealthy individuals use structured filters to evaluate opportunity cost, ROI, and risk. Decision frameworks reduce emotional influence and preserve focus for high-impact choices. Consistency in filtered decision-making compounds into transformative long-term results. What decision filter could you adopt today to ensure your choices align with long-term wealth goals? Before your next significant decision, pause and ask, will this matter in 5 years, and is the upside worth the cost? Chapter 8: Identity Shifts. Becoming the person wealth requires. Wealth is not just a matter of doing different things. It is about becoming a different kind of person. High net worth individuals understand that sustained success comes from aligning actions with identity. When habits are rooted in who you believe yourself to be, they become automatic. Without this shift, new behaviors often fail because they conflict with an old self-image. The wealthy deliberately cultivate an identity that supports their goals, embodying the traits of discipline, foresight, and decisiveness long before those traits produce visible results. Psychology calls this the be-do-have model. Most people operate in reverse, believing they must first acquire wealth before adopting the behaviors and mindset associated with it. High achievers flip the sequence. They focus on being the kind of person who naturally does what leads to wealth, trusting that results will follow. This shift is subtle but profound. It moves the focus from external outcomes to internal alignment. Rather than forcing themselves into new habits through sheer willpower, they anchor those habits to a redefined sense of self. This process often begins with language. Identity is reinforced through the words you use to describe yourself. Saying "I'm trying to be disciplined" carries hesitation, while "I am disciplined" affirms the trait as part of who you are. Neuroscience supports this approach. Self-referential statements engage brain regions associated with long-term behavior regulation more effectively than statements framed around temporary effort. Wealthy individuals internalize these affirmations, repeating them until they become self-evident truths. Over time, their decisions naturally flow from this identity, eliminating the constant negotiation that derails most attempts at change. Visualization strengthens this process further. Elite performers often rehearse their future selves mentally, imagining not only what they will achieve but how they will behave daily. This mental rehearsal activates neural pathways similar to those engaged during actual performance, training the brain to normalize those behaviors. By repeatedly envisioning themselves as individuals who manage money wisely, guard their time fiercely, and learn relentlessly, they condition their identity in advance of reality. Their minds begin to treat wealth habits not as foreign actions but as expressions of who they already are. Environment plays an equally crucial role. Identity is both personal and social. The company you keep reinforces the traits you embody. High net worth individuals intentionally surround themselves with peers who reflect their desired identity. Proximity to discipline. Ambitious people makes discipline and ambition feel natural, even expected. In contrast, staying in circles where impulsivity or scarcity thinking dominate creates friction against change. By curating their environments, the wealthy ensure that their surroundings continually affirm the identity they are building. Small wins accelerate this transformation. Each time you follow through on a habit consistent with your desired identity, you cast a vote for that version of yourself. Over time, these votes accumulate into undeniable evidence. For example, every day you stick to a savings plan or block time for deep work reinforces, "I am someone who manages wealth wisely." This feedback loop creates momentum, reducing the cognitive load of decision making. You no longer debate whether to act, you simply express who you are. This identity-driven approach explains why wealthy individuals sustain habits that others abandon. Their behaviors are not external impositions but internal expressions. When identity shifts, discipline feels less like effort and more like alignment. This is the point where wealth ceases to be a distant goal and becomes the natural consequence of living authentically as someone built to create it. By focusing on identity first, you bypass the resistance that derails most attempts at change. You stop chasing wealth and instead step into the character of someone who attracts it. Wealth then becomes not merely what you have but who you are becoming, an outward reflection of an inward transformation anchored in deliberate design. Sustainable wealth habits emerge naturally from an aligned identity. Shifting from doing wealth-building tasks to being the type of person who performs them creates lasting change. Language, visualization, environment, and small wins reinforce identity until actions become automatic. What identity shift must you embrace to naturally adopt the habits of a high net worth individual? Write a present tense statement of identity that aligns with your wealth goals and repeat it aloud daily until it feels natural. Chapter 9: Overcoming Scarcity Thinking, Training the Abundant Mindset. Scarcity thinking is one of the greatest obstacles to wealth. It is a mental framework rooted in fear, the belief that resources are limited and that someone else's gain must come at your expense. This mindset narrows perception, distorts decision-making, and keeps individuals trapped in cycles of short-term survival. High-net-worth individuals operate from the opposite perspective, an abundant mindset that sees opportunity as expansive rather than finite. This shift in thinking is not simply motivational. It is practical and deeply tied to how the brain identifies and acts upon potential. Scarcity narrows focus. Behavioral science shows that when individuals perceive a lack, whether of money, time, or opportunity, their cognitive bandwidth shrinks. They become preoccupied with immediate problems at the expense of long-term solutions. This explains why those caught in scarcity often make impulsive decisions, such as high-interest borrowing or neglecting investments. Their mental energy is consumed by urgent concerns, leaving little capacity for strategic planning. Wealthy individuals counteract this by deliberately expanding their perspective. They train their minds to scan for possibilities rather than threats, cultivating a lens that allows them to see paths forward where others see dead ends. One powerful tool they use is gratitude. While it may seem unrelated to financial success, research reveals that gratitude rewires the brain toward abundance. Regularly acknowledging what is already present shifts focus away from deficiency and primes the mind to recognize value. Wealthy individuals often maintain gratitude journals or incorporate reflection into their routines, using these practices to break free from the tunnel vision of scarcity. Over time, this habit reframes how they perceive resources and opportunities, replacing fear-driven decisions with confidence-driven ones. They also control their inputs rigorously. Scarcity thrives on negative reinforcement. Constant exposure to headlines about economic collapse, market crashes, or competition fuels the belief that there is never enough. The wealthy counteract this by curating what they consume. They limit fear-based narratives and instead immerse themselves in material that reinforces growth, whether through books, mentors, or environments where ambition is normalized. This intentional input reshapes their mental model, creating a feedback loop where possibility feels more real than limitation. Another practice tied to abundance is future-oriented thinking. Scarcity keeps attention anchored to immediate deficiencies, but wealthy individuals spend significant time envisioning and planning for what comes next. They ask questions like, "What resources can I create?" Or "How can this challenge be turned into leverage?" This forward-facing orientation shifts the brain from reacting to constructing. Neurological studies show that such proactive focus activates the prefrontal cortex, the area linked to problem-solving and goal achievement, reducing the grip of fear-driven impulses. Importantly, abundance is not about blind optimism or ignoring risk. It is about approaching risk with confidence rather than paralysis. High-net-worth individuals acknowledge challenges, but they frame them as solvable puzzles rather than insurmountable walls. This framing changes their behavior. Instead of retreating into caution, they invest strategically, build skills, and expand networks, all of which compound to generate new opportunities. Environment reinforces this mindset. Spending time with individuals who operate from abundance normalizes it. Conversations shift from complaints about limitations to discussions of ideas, strategies, and ventures. The wealthy understand that mindset is contagious and deliberately place themselves in circles where expansive thinking is the default. This exposure accelerates their own shift, as seeing others succeed undercuts the scarcity-driven belief that success is unattainable. Scarcity and abundance cannot coexist. One must displace the other. By practicing gratitude, curating inputs, thinking proactively, and surrounding themselves with expansive peers, wealthy individuals dismantle the mental barriers that trap others. This mental reconditioning unlocks not only new behaviors but also new opportunities that were always present but previously unseen. Abundance, once internalized, transforms how you perceive, decide, and act, creating a cascade of choices that build wealth naturally. Scarcity thinking narrows focus and drives fear-based decisions that undermine wealth building. Gratitude, curated inputs, and future-oriented thinking expand perception and prime the mind for opportunity. Abundance is cultivated through deliberate mental training and reinforced by environment. Where in your life does scarcity thinking still dominate, and how is it influencing your decisions? Write down 3 things you are grateful for each morning this week to begin shifting your focus from lack to abundance. Chapter 10: Micro-consistency, the compound effect of small wins. Wealth is rarely the product of one grand gesture or a single breakthrough moment. Instead, it is built through the quiet power of micro-consistency, small, deliberate actions repeated over time that generate results far greater than their individual weight. High-net-worth individuals excel at this because they understand the compounding nature of both finance and behavior. Just as consistent deposits in an investment account grow exponentially, repeated habits accumulate, shaping identity, increasing capability, and producing results that appear almost effortless to outsiders. The psychological barrier for most people is the misconception that success requires massive, sweeping changes. This belief leads to paralysis because big transformations feel intimidating and unattainable. Yet research in behavioral science confirms that lasting change is far more likely to occur when it begins with small, manageable actions. Micro-consistency leverages this principle by lowering resistance. Wealthy individuals focus on what is achievable daily rather than waiting for perfect conditions to make dramatic leaps. Over time, those small actions create an unstoppable momentum. An example of this can be seen in the practice of incremental saving. A modest automated transfer into an investment account may seem insignificant in isolation, but as weeks become months and months become years, the amount compounds into substantial growth. The same principle applies to non-financial habits. Reading for just 15 minutes a day may appear trivial, but it equates to over 9 hours of focused learning each month, enough to digest multiple books annually. These small wins reinforce self-discipline, which then spills over into other areas of life, creating a network of reinforcing behaviors. Micro-consistency also bypasses the cognitive fatigue that derails more ambitious efforts. Large-scale changes often demand sustained willpower, which is finite. By contrast, small actions slip beneath the brain's resistance radar. A 5-minute review of financial accounts, a 10-minute morning routine, or a single daily networking outreach does not provoke the same psychological pushback as sweeping overhauls. Yet these actions, stacked repeatedly, create visible shifts. High-net-worth individuals exploit this phenomenon, understanding that the brain prefers minimal disruption and rewards patterns maintained over time. Another advantage of micro-consistency is its ability to compound confidence. Each completed habit becomes evidence that reinforces identity. When someone commits to saving a small amount each week or dedicating a short time to skill development, they begin to see themselves as disciplined and capable. This identity feedback loop encourages persistence, making it easier to layer additional habits. This mirrors how wealth compounds. The returns on early actions create resources that accelerate future gains. In the same way, early habit wins create psychological returns that fuel future discipline. Momentum is critical here. Newton's first law applies not only to physics but also to behavior. An object in motion stays in motion. Wealthy individuals protect their momentum fiercely. Even on challenging days, they maintain their smallest, easiest habits, understanding that continuity matters more than intensity. Skipping entirely risks breaking the chain, while even a reduced effort preserves forward motion. This relentless commitment to consistency, however small, prevents regression and keeps progress compounding. The beauty of micro-consistency lies in its invisibility. The changes are so subtle that they rarely feel dramatic day to day. Then, suddenly, the results become undeniable. Financial accounts grow steadily, networks expand, skills sharpen, and opportunities multiply. Outsiders often call this overnight success, but those who live it know it is the natural endpoint of hundreds of unremarkable yet deliberate steps executed without fail. Wealth is built the same way a wall is constructed, one brick at a time, placed with precision, until the structure stands tall and unshakable. Micro-consistency is the discipline of placing those bricks daily. Over time, These bricks form not only financial abundance but also the habits, mindset, and resilience required to sustain it for life. Small, repeated actions compound into significant results over time. Micro-consistency reduces resistance and builds confidence, fueling sustained momentum. Wealth is a byproduct of steady, deliberate habits, not sporadic bursts of effort. What is one small, repeatable habit you could start today that would compound meaningfully over the next year? Identify a wealth-building habit that takes less than 5 minutes and commit to performing it daily for the next 7 days. Chapter 11: Sustaining Momentum, Avoiding Wealth Plateaus. Reaching a higher level of financial success is not the end of the journey, it is the beginning of a new challenge. Many individuals climb steadily only to stall once they achieve a measure of comfort. Wealth plateaus occur not because of external limitations but because the habits and strategies that created initial success are no longer actively nurtured. High net worth individuals avoid this trap by treating momentum as a resource to be guarded and renewed. They understand that maintaining growth requires deliberate recalibration, continuous challenge, and a refusal to drift into complacency. Momentum is fragile. It thrives on consistent action but can be eroded quickly by inattention or overconfidence. Behavioral studies highlight that after reaching a significant milestone, individuals often unconsciously relax their standards, assuming progress will continue automatically. The wealthy counter this by instituting regular reviews of their systems and results. They track performance metrics not only for their finances but for the habits and routines underpinning those results. Quarterly audits allow them to spot early signs of stagnation, make necessary adjustments, and stay aligned with evolving goals. This structured vigilance prevents regression masked as stability. Another key to sustaining momentum is raising the bar intentionally. Success breeds comfort, and comfort dulls ambition. High achievers combat this by setting progressively challenging objectives that stretch their capabilities. After automating core financial habits and reaching foundational targets, they direct their focus toward new ventures, higher value investments, or personal development pursuits that demand growth. This forward pull keeps them from coasting on previous achievements, ensuring that their identity continues evolving in tandem with their wealth. Continuous learning reinforces this cycle. In dynamic markets and industries, skills and knowledge that were sufficient yesterday can become obsolete tomorrow. Wealthy individuals stay students of their craft, dedicating time to understanding emerging trends, refining strategies, and expanding their expertise. This commitment to intellectual agility ensures they remain adaptable, capable of pivoting effectively rather than clinging to outdated approaches. Their momentum is protected not by rigidity but by responsiveness to change. Maintaining momentum also involves surrounding oneself with the right influences. Peer environments shape standards subtly but powerfully. When success is normalized among those around you, it becomes the baseline rather than the peak. High net worth individuals often join mastermind groups or professional networks where ambition is shared and innovation is constant. These environments create accountability and exposure to ideas that reignite drive, preventing the stagnation that often follows isolated success. Equally critical is guarding against overextension. Momentum is not acceleration without limit, it is sustainable forward movement. Burnout can derail progress as effectively as complacency. The wealthy manage this balance by building systems that support recovery and balance, delegating low-value tasks, maintaining health routines, and creating space for rest. They view energy as a finite resource to be managed wisely, ensuring they can sustain their pace without depletion. The discipline of momentum also extends to mindset. Even after achieving considerable wealth, high performers maintain the perspective that there is always more to learn, refine, or optimize. This humility keeps them engaged in the process rather than fixated solely on results. They see each plateau not as a ceiling but as a platform from which to launch higher. This mental framing transforms moments of stability into preparation phases, preventing stagnation from taking root. Ultimately, sustaining momentum is about protecting the mechanisms that created success in the first place: consistent habits, adaptive learning, supportive environments, and forward-focused goals. Wealth is not static, it is either compounding or eroding, depending on how diligently it is nurtured. By treating momentum as a living force requiring attention and renewal, high net worth individuals ensure that their growth does not plateau but continues climbing steadily, powered by systems designed to endure. Momentum is maintained through structured reviews, continuous learning, and progressive goal setting. Environments that normalize success and provide accountability reinforce growth. Sustained wealth requires balance, discipline paired with recovery to prevent burnout. What systems or habits could you strengthen or reintroduce to ensure your financial growth does not plateau? Schedule a quarterly review to assess your habits, financial progress, and goals, and identify one area to elevate immediately. Take care and be well.